Paul and I just want to share some thoughts and about both what we talked about and then really to talk about that next generation and some thoughts on that, because we all, one way or another, touch the next generation, whether it's through kids, grandkids, cousins, nephews, whatever. And it's a very, very different time. First of all, if we get the rise slide, we hope that you've taken away the idea that artificial intelligence, general artificial intelligence, is a capability, it's not a technology, which means it's the integration of humans and learning, and that it's really important for you to understand on this learning journey kind of where you are. And I would say even some of our presenters and so forth kind of got sideways because they were talking about trying to do transformational things that failed as opposed to really research and experimentation. People, this is such a new thing, to go to AI land, to understand what it's like, to be in dialogue with technology for the first time in humankind, that you cannot hop over the experiential part of this, the research and experimentation, and the education part of this thing. And then islands of innovation really make it real. And that's why we take a lot of the products and services of our company focused on those things. The news, just you saw it today, just digesting what's going on and helping out, whether you're in the first phases of this or later phases. And then this, so the first part's really about education, experimentation, and then you get to the engineering, the stuff that people talk about transformation. So and the reason I say something like this is when people say, oh, we don't want to automate the current way of doing things, we want to jump to the next way of doing things. I would say to you, no. You do want to automate the way you're doing it now if you're learning, if it's the beginning, because you can't hop to the new until you understand what you're dealing with. So then this notion of really engineering, whether it's the organizational transformation or engineering the cost base and so forth, as we talked about with the token explosion, that's where that begins. So really getting this right, understanding where your organization is, where you are, where your family is in this whole journey. And then really, we start talking about the really mind-blowing things when you get to leveraging silicon intelligence and a whole different set of economics where the AI is building the AI. That is coming, but I would say the year of 2026 is getting more of the population of companies and individuals into levels 1 and 2. A number of people crossing the ocean, going into AI land. It's not the 5%, but it's 10, 15%. And then I would say by the end of 26, we're going to start to see more leveraging companies in different industries. Professional services is going to be one, right? There's going to be a professional services firm that's going to begin to use AI to build AI and have a totally different thing. Biosciences, another one, and so forth. Paul?
Yeah, and then throughout this journey, one of the things that we mentioned, we want to earn the right to be your trusted partner. And I know for some of you out there, we are. The other ones, we're earning that right here. And a variety of things. You saw the news earlier today. That's a free news we give out. We now have a private equity firm paying for us to customize the news because they have to stay current. We've got dozens of implementations right now, people asking for education. So GenAI 101 education, we're doing a lot of that. We have 3 instructors now. And the real value is getting a 201, which is department level, getting agents and everything else. So that's a real important part of the capability here. And lastly here, we really believe in connections. I know there are a lot of connections we made one-on-one. We believe that the humans need to stay together in this moment of time. That's why we don't do all the stuff digital. We have a weekly learning lab. We have a daily AI news. We have this annual event, and we have other private dinners we do throughout the year. So if you want to get involved in the community or not, please talk with John and I, because we really want to earn the right to be your indispensable partner.
Yes, I think also in terms of setting strategy and choosing partners and suppliers in the middle of that. We have the buyer's guide that we talked through, and really trying to understand vendor trends as well as adoption trends as well as user implications, because you're not going to be able to do this alone. Whether you're partnering with us or others and so forth, leaders are learning from leaders, and we're at a stage in the development of this thing where it is not stable. It's actually getting more complicated. And so as you choose your path, you're going to need different advice, advisors, and suppliers as you get to that.
John, what do we tell our kids?
What do we tell our kids? Well, first of all, I want you to go on a little bit of a thought journey with me. Can you imagine a 2026 where anybody who is in any learning institution is not interacting with these robots? I don't know about you, I can't imagine. Can you imagine any kid at MIT not using these robots? And if there is someone, please put your hand up and show me, so let's just take that as a base, okay? Every single person who's learning, unless you're in, some kind of school that is purposely keeping you out of the digital world, and there are some, very few, but every single school, every single child, every single learner is going to be interacting, if they're not already interacting, with these models and with these robots. So let's just take, you got to kind of get your head right about that. And if you're not using it, it doesn't matter. You think a college kid writing a paper isn't going to use this stuff? And I'm not saying to cheat. I'm just saying to do, okay. So that's the reality. Now, what are the implications of this? First of all, I think the bad news is, if you've been a lazy parent and, it's like, okay, the school's got it handled, make sure they get into a good school and so forth, you're going to have to get more involved. You're going to have to get more involved in terms of what they're seeing, very much like people, I think, have stepped up and gotten involved in terms of screen time and game time and so forth, and pornography and other things that are available to our kids, right? Now you're going to have to start worrying about the content and how they're learning. And you're going to have to look at your schools and say, do I want my child going to a school that doesn't use these things, that can accelerate? Are you going to send your child to a trade school that doesn't have power tools? No, right? That's another whole venue, which is if you're worried about employability, I do think that the trades, right now we're short somewhere between 750,000 and 1 million tradespeople. That's going to be in a totally different, I think, status category as the prices of college are going up and, the predictability. And I also think with the increasing wealth gap, we're actually going to see an increase in demand for trades as the Marie Antoinettes of the world build their palaces, right? Which we already see if you look at the statistics. So
I just want to comment back. So I think one of the things we talked a lot in the last 2 days is how fast this is moving, how adoption in organizations is really difficult here. At least for me, we've had 6 or 8 major conversations with schools. I have no confidence, this is my personal view, no confidence that any school is going to be able to keep up and move. If I hear another school talking about a committee to study it, it's breathtaking here. So I think from a parent standpoint, we really got to think about how do we want to augment, how do we want to model rapid learning? How do we want to find rapid learning here? Because we cannot, I believe, rely solely on our colleges and high schools to prepare our kids for this AI world that we're all coming into.
I couldn't agree more. And we're both executive fellows, at Harvard Business School. Of my alma mater, I would say they are not moving anywhere near fast enough. They are not moving anywhere near fast enough. Okay, Jeff Busgang's doing some interesting stuff. There are, Jeff Raport's doing some interesting stuff. This is a complete reformation of how you teach. And remember, the Harvard Business School teaching method is not the Socratic method. The Socratic method is Socrates beat the living daylights out of you until you gave up. Harvard Business School is the conversational teaching method, discussion teaching method. And what are these robots? They're discussion partners. I went to my 50th reunion at Phillips Exeter, and in New Hampshire, and they have a Harkness table. And I was talking to the current principal, and I said, look, I have a question for you. And the Harkness table, basically, my largest class was 21 kids, and most classes are like 10 to 12 kids. And it's an oval-shaped table, and you have a discussion, right? And there's nowhere to hide. That's where I learned to kind of slipstream on the second comment and skim the book. Anyway, fake it till you make it. I just asked the couple of faculty there, I said, look, why don't you just, for some of your classes, just bring a computer and put it there and ask the class 3 questions. Who do we want to invite to the class? What do we want them to do? And what what purpose are we doing it for? So, you know, we're talking about Jane Eyre. Okay, well, pick another author, whatever. They can list the whole class. The model's right there. I said the incremental cost is the cost of a laptop, $500. And it's like, why wouldn't you be experimenting with new personalities in there? The other thing, and this I think goes to Paul's point, you can't count on the schools, and your kids are going to be in this environment, and the work environment's going to be moving faster. So you have to start thinking about, how can I use these tools? Because you can call out from history any tutor, any group of tutors, any hybrid tutor. You know, the other day this shows I'm a nerd, I guess, but you know, I was going down to get some milk, and I had Nietzsche and Socrates arguing about the purpose of life, you know, through a voice interface on my phone in my car. You know.
John, let's get some comments. Are there comments or reactions or contributions others have? Do we have the microphones? Anyone else worried about Rosemary? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
No, it doesn't work. You'll just have to repeat it.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. So I'd like to know, what do you tell young kids to prepare to, what classes should they be taking? What should they be enrolling in universities?
The question was, what do we tell young kids? What should they be enrolling in universities? For me, I've two things of advice. One is to use these tools in an active manner to help you learn, okay? So you should be graduating you should be building your own teaching, learning posse. However you do that. And not necessarily just you as an individual, but there could be groups of kids who do this stuff. And the first instance we say, oh, you're going to cheat with it. No. We're going to evolve these things to be more like an Oxford Don, where you have to argue with that Oxford Don why you deserve a degree, as opposed to giving you the cheat sheet for a test, right? So we can actually return, and if you look at the data, there's data from the University of Chicago that shows that kids who are tutored do 2 standard deviations better than kids in a 1 to 30 classroom. We got the 1 to 30 classroom from the Prussians. You know, Horace Mann came back. Part of that industrial education John was talking about was the 1 to 30 classroom. For all of humankind before that, it only served a small group. It was tutoring, okay? And what we have the opportunity to do now is Socrates at scale. So I think you take the Harvard Business School teaching method, including the teaching groups and the student groups and the discussion method. You take Maria Montessori. You take Socrates. You put it in a blender, and you create a new teaching method.
Yeah. One thing I would add, Rosemary, is I think we've heard a lot of executives here, how critical it is in business that the executives don't tell, but they model for the employees. I think as parents, we need to do the same thing. We need to model curiosity, talking with the robots, having the robots involved at dinner, asking them questions about that so that our kids see the modeling of it, because I think that's a critical thing.
Yeah.
Is one up here? Yeah.
Well,
oh, you got one in the back? We're going to one in the back. Thank you.
The second part of that answer was,
yeah.
If you're willing to do the work, mathematics. Because at the core of all of this is mathematics. So those two things.
Yeah, I think I just want to say thank you, John and Paul, and your team to put together a fantastic conference. Big round of applause for them.
Oh, thank you. And our staff, Hope, and everyone else.
Yes, absolutely. And also, you've been instrumental in AI Woodstock, working with the government, the Massachusetts government, to get AI in Boston. Continue the journey. We're really excited to be part of this journey, and thanks again.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Question up here, contribution? Yeah, the microphone's coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. So talking about educational organizations not moving fast enough, and I'm wondering how we help them, because it's really hard you've learned how to teach, and
yes.
you know how to do that well, you've honed that skill, and to try and add on top of that, when you're already underpaid, you're already overworked, to go and learn how to teach again in this new world, this thing that you yourself don't have time to learn, how can we support the educators today in this transformation?
A great question. I think that for me, there's 3 hunks. One is, firstly, we make a commitment the way the Chinese have to educate the educators about this stuff, right? And we make resources available. My second oldest son teaches music in the Chicago public schools, and he puts up his own money to fill in places that, you know, kids don't have stuff, right? So there's that. Then I think we need a whole effort on a public good. Ben Franklin, right, created the public library system in the United States. We need the Ben Franklin of AI. So we have to start thinking about public access and so forth. And last but not least, we have to go back to basics. A mutual friend of Tim and mine, Alan Kay, guy who invented object-oriented programming, he worked with Seymour Papert and Jerome Bruner and so forth. They did the science of how kids learn, right? I mean, the reason Minsky and Papert were so interested, they wanted to understand human development. So they're looking at neurology and psychology and education. We have to go back. Here's one question the MIT Media Lab started to get into. Does using a model make your brain fat or fit? Okay? And the current interface makes it fat. You're not as likely to, right? But that's just an interface issue. If you have Socrates pounding on you, you're going to be fit. Okay? We have to do the science. What's the neurology, the psychology? How does a group learn when you have, when you have different kinds of agents in that learning process? We need to do the science. Yeah. So I would say it's at 3 levels. Investment in the current teachers, access to the public good, and then science.
And the thing I would just add is I think there's a question right behind. We talk a lot about the companies needing to become learning organizations. Learning is a new oil. You're not going to be able to compete if you're not learning quickly. I think we need the same thing as society. I was fortunate in the early 90s to spend a year in Japan, and you bow lowest to the emperor and the second lowest to sensei. So that's held up in that society here. And I don't know how we can get through this AI world without becoming culturally honoring all the learners out there here. And I think that's a mind shift that's different than warehousing the kids to get an AP exam.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think following along with that, what you're really sort of saying here with bringing literally the robots to the dinner table with the children is the idea you want to teach them that these robots are their friends that can help them help humanity as opposed to just being tools to make more money.
Absolutely. And the thing is that we need to do this because there's no way to keep your kids from interacting with these. And if they don't, don't you want to teach them in an environment where you can actually, teach them how to think about them, how to use them, how to not trust them, how to trust them, like that whole routine. I mean, one of the things Paul happens to know a lot about, the development of cults, right? And he was talking to an expert of cults, and the expert in cults, well, why don't you tell it? I mean.
Oh, yeah, and people don't know, Steve Hassan, one of the world experts in cults, right over in Cambridge here. It's really clear how to do a cult. Playbook's really, really clear. We absolutely are going to see cults, AI-based cults. They're absolutely coming here. They're already starting on the fringe here. So we've got a lot of, I think really downside risk. We need to really start understanding here. And we've only seen a little bit already. We talked earlier about the suicides here. So the downside risk is non-trivial here. So I think, let's take one more comment, John, and we wrap up these last 2 days. One other contribution or comment? Is that Tim?
So Marshall McLuhan said a long time ago, kids are our message to the future. So that's always the way I think about it.
Say that again, kids are what?
Kids are our message to the future.
Well said. Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of education, another Alan Kay story was that the real problem is people don't think about curriculum, they think about tools. And so he always told the story of, the American education system in particular solution to music education was to put a piano in every classroom, but the music's not in the piano, okay? And so, I was talking to somebody the other night about this and saying, well, you can have all the AI tutors you want, but what are they tutoring you? Okay, so you really have to have a curriculum and an idea of what it means. I call it to be a citizen. Education is not about getting a job. It's about creating a citizenship because it takes a lot of energy to keep a society running. And we're seeing breaks right now because we fail to apply that energy. So I think it can be a tremendous tool. I think the image is right of an omnipresent kind of immersive capability like Socrates or something like that. Yes. But we have to pay a lot of attention that it's Socrates and not a darker version, like
Yes.
the cult stuff. And that's a huge issue, I think, that we
Not
have
Savannah
to pay
Rolla
attention
or
to.
somebody, yeah.
Yeah.
So wrap us up, John.
Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. I really want to thank our colleagues and staff. First, you know, there are a number of folks, you know, Adam Rappaport, you know, Tim Andrews, Luda Kopakina, Hope Heim, Jenny Torkelson. I'm sorry, that's not her new name.
Yeah.
Jenny,
Jenny.
sorry. She just got married last month. Laura and the AV staff here, and you know, like anything else, you can't put on this without great staff. And I'll tell you, it's been a real pleasure. There's always so many things to do, and you know, we're nothing without the people that we work with.
And our sponsors, John.
And our sponsors, of course. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Paul, my buddy here, because he was the one who started ChatGPT Nuggets back, God, I don't know, whatever. And I found this, you know, lunatic German that thought like I did. And so we started on this journey together, and it's been really quite rewarding. So thank you, my friend.